from the bartending industry entering into this realm, they would need to understand it is a different.
Today we're talking to James Baray from Breakthrough, one of the top distributors in the country, about how he learns, retains, and shares product knowledge at scale. Being able to talk about the spirit, right, and the story behind it adds value to the bartender.
Bartending, you tell me if I'm wrong, right? So you have a whole different work regimen, a whole different discipline.
And if you're a mobile bartender showing up to events with different spirits, wine, and cocktails each time, this episode's packed with lessons you can apply immediately. I want to talk about a product that's not sitting on here. I call it whenever we call each other, I'm like, hey man, what's up with that F word? You're adding a whole nother layer of expertise that they didn't expect you to have. Let's get into it. This is Behind the Mobile Bar.
That's a pretty ominous. Oh, sorry.
Hey, you know
Intro. Wow, I don't know if I can live up to that.
Yeah, hey, man, this is
goodness.
No pressure, James.
It's some good stuff, but
Wait a minute, did you just not intro me and CJ?
I'm sorry.
You don't matter anymore.
Yeah. No, because
James is here.
We're out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Let me
You
grab my
guys bring
cocktail.
your own presence. You guys are great. They're gonna know about y'all anyways, man.
That's true. Okay, well,
no,
you get a
but-
pass.
But
You
look,
get a pass.
today is interesting, right? We got James from Breakthrough, which is a distributor, right? And a lot of people don't understand this alcohol business. There is a 3-tier system, right? You have a supplier, a distributor, and you have the retailer or bar aspect.
What's supplier versus distributor? What is
Yeah, supplier is like the brand. So all these
okay.
brands right here, right? So all these whiskeys we have here, these are the suppliers. These are the brands, the people who
Got it.
sell these
Okay.
products. And then it has to be sold to a distributor. Therefore, the distributor then sells it to a retailer like us, a liquor store, or a bar, restaurant, anything of that nature. And
So
then
like
they sell it to their customers.
Bubba's to Breakthrough
Right.
to Happiest Hours.
Bingo.
Okay,
That's
got
it.
it.
And then
Okay.
Happiest Hours to our customers.
Consumer.
Right. And it's a very interesting thing because it's heavily regulated, right? And like this is back in Prohibition, why they created all this stuff. It's not like you can just, make a pair of shoes and put it on Amazon and sell it right away. There's processes and all these things in places and taxes and all this stuff. But I think one of the things, like to our audience from a mobile bartending and a bartending standpoint, is that as a distributor, you're still representing a ton of these brands.
Right.
Right. And you have to know the stories
Yes.
of these brands and what makes them special over the next one.
Right.
And then applying it to your audience. And I think there's a lot of similarities with us mobile bartenders because we show up to different events with different brands, right? We have to make different cocktails. Sometimes they'll throw a curveball at you and say, make a paper plane. You're like, oh, okay, let's do this. And so I think there's a lot of similarities. And that's why we're just excited to have you on, big guy.
We need to learn all the booze news.
Yeah, the booze
news.
The
Just like Blues Clues.
Like Blues Clues.
Wow.
We need the booze news.
I see like a
Wow,
news channel type of like
man.
ad.
Wow.
Booze news.
Although we probably get sued for that. Some blue dog
wasn't
would
me.
come and serve you papers.
Right. So no,
where's Lassie
I
when you
think
need her?
right. I think this is great. And James, tell us. Let's just jump right into it. How do you've been in the distribution game for years now,
Yeah,
right?
now.
And you've been successful in it, right? You are our favorite distributor in like person, right? That works with us, right? So how have you been so good at it? And one thing that stood out, everyone has their different ways of doing things. But what stood out to us is how you're able to talk about the brands. What are some of the tips and tricks you have? You have so many products that you're able to like
Educate people.
people on it
Storytelling.
and then have us sell it to people.
Yeah, well, it's like I said earlier, I'm a wealth of useless knowledge, right? So it's like, so these stories, they're not useless, but they're not what's important to everybody else, right? So
to me.
So see, Charles,
Yes.
CJ.
Yes.
I just kind of have a knack for remembering these. Anytime I can get a story, I can hear the story, it clicks. And realistically, it's funny because years ago, many years ago, there was a high-speed chase on the freeway, and this guy, he gets stuck in traffic because it's L.A., right? And he jacks this van from this guy. Maybe you guys remember this. He jacks this van, and he like yanks the guy out of the car, and the guy's still in the seatbelt. And he gets in the car, and the guys, you remember that?
I remember
Remember
that
that?
now. He misses
Guy was
the
dragging, right?
tire, but yes.
Yes.
Oh.
And it's interesting because later that week, a friend of ours, they bought this van. A van. Right?
Great price.
Nobody got it was the van. No, it wasn't.
No, I was waiting for you to say that it was the van.
No, it wasn't. But the wife comes and she starts telling us why they bought this van. It's great. It's got this. It's got and as soon as you put it in a park, it locks. Had that guy who got carjacks van did this, he wouldn't have gotten pulled out and dragged behind his van.
Wow.
So she started repeating this story. Actually, she started selling
Yes.
this van after it was sold to her, and the story just kept going. Now, I'm going to tell you that story. You're going to remember that story because as soon as I told you remember when that happened.
Yeah,
You guys were probably not in the state by then, right?
Right.
But anytime you can remember a story and repeat it,
Right.
you're giving a pitch that somebody else is going to pitch for you.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yep.
Telephone game.
And but for some reason I like stories. I've always liked stories. And so when I hear a story, it gets stuck. I mean, ask me what I had for breakfast yesterday. I probably won't be able to tell you, but I can repeat the story
Right.
as to why Sagamore is such a great rye to have in the bar, drinking straight up or in a cocktail like we're drinking today. But
It's narrative.
but yeah, there's a lot of some have a lot of good stories, some just have a story, right? So
Right,
then now you're focusing in on the ingredients, how it's made, right?
Right.
I was going to go to
why
that
it's-
next.
Yeah, okay. So
Right.
so I'll try to stay away from that. But no, most of the brands that I'm able to sell, I'm allowed to sell, if you will. I'm privileged to sell. There's usually a story behind it.
Yeah.
And that sticks with me because again, I like the stories. So remembering the stories isn't so hard for me.
Got it.
I don't know about everybody else.
But so there is homework involved.
There's
You have to know
absolutely-
your product.
Yeah,
study
Absolutely,
it.
there's
so glad you
homework.
brought that
In-
up.
In fact, him too, because a while back I filmed Alana and CJ, and I was going to put this thing together, right, about what it takes to pitch, somebody, and there is homework. I mean, before I show up and I have that list, well, that list didn't just happen. I put that list together, and I have to do some research, even if it's a brand that I'm familiar with. I'm still going to do the research
Brush up on
again.
it. Yeah.
Hence,
Yeah.
I always bring my index cards to our
That's
tastings,
so
right?
true. He does.
You
yeah.
did. We
Yeah.
did a gin tasting just last week, and
Yeah.
you had your handy dandy little cards.
The
My
index cards.
See, there's
Handy dandy little-
a theme going.
There
Yeah.
we go.
The Blues Clues and the handy
Handy
dandy.
dandy.
right?
I'm just
So-
what we're saying
Yes.
is I'm very childish and immature.
No,
He's on
but
copyright.
I'm right there with you. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, always doing the research again, even though I've done it, so it stays there. And sometimes there's something new that you didn't catch the first time or the
Right.
second time or even the
Right.
third time. And these companies they put a lot into marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
They
right.
go out of their way to have a supplier rep come out and talk to you and help you and go with you and relate the stories. So there's what is it? Repetition is the mother of retention.
Right.
So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of homework that goes into it before I even show up
Yeah.
with these bottles.
And,
Prep-
and it pays
preparation
off.
is key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
preparation is key.
Yeah.
But I think James said it best. A good story just sticks, right? And
Right.
it can enrich the experience, And so that's why I enjoy when James comes through to taste something, because I'm a lover of narrative. James is a lover of narrative,
Right.
and so he can tell me a story, and then, boom. Now it's now and
Now you're
I,
gonna
I
tell
don't
that
remember
same
all
story.
the stories exactly. I don't remember all the stories, but but like the one that is special to me, it now sticks with me, and now I'm more excited to talk about that bottle,
Right.
right?
Gotcha.
Right.
You can talk
Yeah.
about that bottle behind the bar, educate clients. They're excited about it. They
Yeah.
want you to come back because you know what
Yes.
you're talking about, what you're
Yeah.
doing.
I tell people all the time, I was never confident in my mixology skills because I'm not a bartender. I'm not that skilled. I don't have, the taste or the imagination or creativity that you guys have. But what I can do is I can tell you a story while I'm making these cocktails so that by the time the cocktail gets in your hand, whether I forgot an ingredient or two, it doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Because you're already convinced from your story.
Yeah.
Right.
I already convinced you with the story that I am coming from a place of experience, right? A place of, you need to jump on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so good. And it goes to the tasting notes now, right? What you're going to bring up and that's big in our world because we're like, if we can control the base spirit, right, then we can make a certain type of cocktail that we know is going to taste really good for our clients.
Right.
Right.
And so, like you said, if the story maybe not there entirely, there's a story there, but it's not like super interesting. You said you probably go into the tasting notes, right? Is that kind of how you do things?
Exactly.
Is there anything when you're like you taste so much stuff,
Yeah.
right? So like, is there anything you're looking for? Like, is your brain already like selling note? Like, oh, this one's more oaky, or this one has these kind of notes, or like what? Walk us through the process when you're tasting a brand new product that's on your portfolio.
That's a really good question. If I like it. No, just kidding.
We're all yes.
If
No.
it's good, it's
But
good.
you know
If it's
what?
bad, it's bad.
When you talk to somebody who's let's just say judging wine, they're a judge of wine, right? And they're judging a competition. The approach that they'll take is you have to look at that glass, and in your mind, you already have to say this is going to be the best glass of Cabernet ever. And then as you taste it, then you start taking away. You start breaking it down, right? So realistically, when you pour a sample of something, you're like, this is going to be the best.
Yeah.
And then you start judging it, you start breaking it down, and sometimes it's still the best, and sometimes it's not so much, right?
Falls a little short.
It falls a little short, but
Yeah.
that's what helps you to break something down as you're tasting it, whether it's wine, whiskey, or even a beer. Let's just say, you're looking for certain tasting notes, and I don't know if this is necessarily going to answer your question, but when I think of you and I think of what you're selling, that helps me to get and which is great with you guys because I love coming to the tasting events. I love being here.
We love
Haven't
having
talked
you.
about June yet,
Oh,
right?
Ooh.
But
You guys
yeah,
have
A
a
lot of
lot
put them on the books.
Yeah. But I love coming because I've started to even understand who's showing up.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to what I
Yeah.
said of, you go to a store or you go to a supermarket, if somebody's there that works there, is this good? People buy it,
Yeah.
right? That's not an answer,
Right.
But when you understand what your consumer likes, and then you can start making a comparison because there may be something that they like. Have you ever thought about or have you ever tried? And then now you're helping to expand their palates, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to just like personally for me, like I'll appreciate coming home and having a Cabernet, right?
Yeah.
And then, after a while it's like, yeah, Cab's not doing it for me. I would like to, expand. Maybe it's a Moscato, maybe it's a Sancerre, or maybe,
Right.
Or maybe I would
Barolo.
just like a nice cocktail, right?
Mm.
And but again, helping to expand people's horizons, like that gentleman that came into the store and asked about Hogsworth, and I just so happened that was not something he was like curious about, but it was outside of his scope, right?
Yep.
And so again, I just so happened to have a bottle in the bag and tasted it.
Funny. That was super coincidence.
But on
Yeah.
top of that, I learned something from it because you said to him, a lot of cigar smokers, and again, I don't smoke.
Yeah.
That's just not me, right?
Yeah.
And for various reasons, right? And so I wouldn't know that, right? And then
See?
he goes, that's exactly what I was thinking. So,
Yep.
that really kind of helps you whenever you can expand somebody's knowledge. I mean, there are some people just, tunnel
like what they
vision.
like.
They're
Right.
gonna,
Yeah.
they like what they like. They're never gonna
The
change.
onesies, twosies, yeah.
Right.
There'll
And
always
they
be
can,
those.
They can be like that, but as far as breaking something down,
Yeah.
thinking about people, thinking about what someone would like, that always kind of helps when you're breaking something down when you're tasting things.
Right. No, that's so key because again, I go back to the mobile bartending like setting, right? We're obviously making cocktails. But if you know the product in its base form, we were just at an event in Arizona and we would let a lot of people try things neat. And we were talking about the spirit and the story behind the spirit and the tasting notes. And the amount of value that is added to, that experience was like incredible.
Yeah.
Because now I'm not just making cocktails for you. I'm a master of what I do. I actually know the product. Try it neat.
Yeah.
Try it
Right.
neat. And let's talk about this experience
Right.
together.
And
Now,
they trust you. Clients will trust you because you're the one that was hired in to, come and serve drinks.
you're adding a whole nother layer of expertise
Yeah.
that they didn't expect you to have.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Or
you know?
or they I never thought about pairing that with that.
Yes.
I never
Yes.
thought that would work.
Yes.
Yes.
That's-
Oh man.
That's so good.
And
So-
that's when you like to see that happen. You see the lights go on,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
You
you're
hit
like,
it on the nose
it's a
for
new
them.
experience,
Yeah.
a new
Oh.
everything.
And you see trust being built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because you put them onto this new experience. And now it's like, well, what else do you have?
Right.
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 Yeah.
Right?
What
Yeah.
else can you now expand my horizons on?
Yeah.
Right?
Because I trust you.
Yeah.
I trust you now.
And I'm going to bring you back to do
That's
it
the
again.
key.
Yes.
I'm going to bring
Coming
you back
back.
to do this
Yeah.
again because not only was I wowed, right? What's the best like form of sales or whatever? It's more so of them telling their friends, and you have sales. You have a sales team
referral.
for you.
Yeah.
Right? They're now referring guys. You guys got to check out this experience. I'm going to hire this bartender. I'm going to bring some other friends over because now they're going to have this tasting experience
Right.
with it as well because they know the product.
Yeah.
Right? And talking about tasting and products. You, my friend, made a few lovely
I
cocktails over
We
here.
couldn't wait. I'm
I
like, come
couldn't
on.
I know. I
wait.
saw it in your hands.
Yeah.
I was just all like,
I'm
Sorry.
gonna.
It has one of my favorite products in it.
So James, you did two of them
Yes.
for us, which is great. You have the one that we already crushed earlier. That was amazing. Talk to us about that. What did you
So,
make there?
I just trademarked it when I walked in the door, right? So
Perfect.
Did.
Nima's handling all the paperwork for us.
Let's go, Nima.
I went with calling it nearly perfect Manhattan.
Okay.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that story along with what I used in the glass. So, the Gallianos used to spend some time with Donald, and he made Manhattans, and he would always make a Manhattan with a brandy, right? Normally it's made with a rye,
Right.
rye and bitters, and then a perfect Manhattan. Well, Manhattan has sweet vermouth in it.
Mm-hmm.
A perfect Manhattan has half ounce of sweet vermouth and then dry vermouth, right?
Mhm.
So I took what he did and I used Hogsworth, which is a bourbon that's been blended with Armagnac,
Mm.
right?
Amazing.
And that's where it comes up with this 9.5-year statement. I love the label because it's very transparent as to the various vintages of the Armagnac.
Yes.
So I'd go over to the tasting room, see what they needed, talk to them, and I'd walk up. I still look for him when I'm walking up, like and he'd call me Jimmy, and he'd say, Jimmy, when you're done down there, come on up. And so I'd go up, and we'd be sitting there, and he'd be watching Western. Sometimes you never
I love
knew who you'd find in his den.
Oh.
He's you never knew.
Yeah.
It could be somebody of some great importance or somebody like me who has no importance, right?
That's a lie.
and very hospitable man. Had a lot of respect for him, and so he would, I'd sit there and he'd say, he'd look at me out of the corner of his eye. I'd be sitting like right where you're at, and he'd be sitting in his chair, and he'd say, Jimmy, you want a Manhattan? I'll make you Manhattan. It's almost 5 o'clock.
Hey.
Oh my gosh.
And so he would, but he would make it with brandy. And so in honor of him, I figured, Armagnac, brandy, right?
Right.
So I went with that and some sweet vermouth, and a little bit different than what we'd normally do for the Manhattan with the vermouth, but
Well,
Yeah.
it was great.
Shout
We
out to
obviously.
Mr. Galliano.
and
And I
so-
was gonna
and so
say,
the
so what's up
glass.
with
The
the
glass,
glass?
yeah.
Yeah,
The
this
glass.
is very new.
this, if you're not from, see, and when we talked about this, I said, again, we did a tasting, and Vivian made these remarkable drinks.
Oh,
I mean,
thank
they were
you.
fantastic. And there's, you see on Instagram, you see all these guys, I was going to say kids. I don't say kids. They're making all these
You're not that old.
new
Yeah.
drinks, and they're mixed, and it's really exciting. But how often are you being asked to make a Manhattan? A
Right,
nice old
yeah.
classic,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And it kind of
Yeah.
reminds you as to what a Manhattan can be,
Yeah.
right? So that's why it's nearly perfect. But so in addition to him making a Manhattan, he would serve them to me in this type of glass.
Oh.
His glasses were vintage. These I got on Amazon. But
We'll save
and
it.
and
Give it
it's
a few
it's
years.
I mean, just the presentation alone, right? Some of
Yeah.
my wife's friends say, "Oh, it's about the glass." I'm like, "Well, it's about the glass, but I mean the presentation, but the juice is really important,
Exactly.
right?"
Yeah.
Exactly.
So these, for all your listeners who may not know what this glass is called, this is a very classic glass. It's called the Marie Antoinette glass.
Oh.
And I'll let you Google how and why, because I'm not going to discuss that.
Wow.
But it's referred to, if you ever were searching for it, it's a Marie Antoinette glass.
glass.
Queen
Somebody
of
write
France.
that down for me.
Queen of France.
Somebody
yes.
write
that
Let
down.
them eat
That's
cake.
super cool.
Let them
I
eat
love
such.
the glass
That
because I
relationship
feel
is
like
interesting.
I'm getting a double.
Get
I
it,
feel like I'm
Jimmy.
getting
Yeah,
more juice.
yeah,
Get
it's
it,
lovely.
Jimmy.
Okay, now I'm being impatient. Tell me about what I have in my hands because I'm dying
yeah.
to
So,
try.
did you guys already drink it?
No,
I
I
may
didn't.
have had
Well,
a
now
sip.
that ice is
I
kind
know,
of.
I did.
Right.
Well, what is it? Do I have the caramelized banana garnish first?
You do. So this is Bubba's pancakes and bacon, which is. Did I say it like that? Pancakes
Yeah,
and bacon,
Bubba's pancakes and
So warm.
right? So Bubba
I just need
is
some hash
it's
browns
really
now.
not there's not a whole lot of information on Bubba, believe it or not. He has
It's all in the
my
name.
God.
he has communicated with me on Instagram
In
a
my
couple
glass.
times.
Yes.
He really has.
All right, Bubba.
Actual
Very
Bubba?
clever. I'm going to
We're gonna say it's
imagine
Bubba.
it is.
It's Bubba.
It's probably some 19-year-old kid,
right.
No, it's Bubba.
repeating what Grandpa said to him.
Right.
But we got this, and in fact, you and Alana were gracious enough to help me post something on it. But the first response when you look at it is, that's ridiculous, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then you open it and you smell it, and it smells like
Oh
a
my God.
pancake, and it tastes like a
But
pancake.
it's like the home style pancake.
Yes.
Not the
Fluffy
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, not
So-
I'm talking about the one with like the different coloration on the bottom.
So-
yeah, a little crispy.
So what I did is I made a Bubba's Old Fashioned. I came up with it, and I added some Sagamore rye, which that's what Sagamore rye
Out of
or
Maryland.
Sagamore does is rye, and that's from farm to bottle.
Yeah.
It is. It's with Sagamore. They're making the grains, they're harvesting the grains, they're distilling it, they're doing everything from farm to bottle with it. Which is, again, was one of the main things with you guys is you wanted something that was good, something natural, something
Quality.
exactly
Quality,
Yeah,
right.
Right.
yeah. Shout
And
out
then
to
I-
DMV.
I used some banana liqueur from Combier, and I made a Bubba's Old Fashioned.
Look at
I
that.
love it.
And,
Thank you. That was
This
delicious.
is
Really good,
great
man.
for brunch.
Really good. Yeah, right.
Or
Like-
breakfast.
Or
Again, like
breakfast.
I said, all I just need is hash browns and we're good to go.
Yeah.
Or a nightcap.
yeah.
And I actually don't like anything banana.
Really?
This is so good. Yeah.
What?
I know, it's so weird. I'll eat a banana, but banana flavored anything, pass. And
Yeah.
this is delicious.
And then I
Alana
saw
put
from
me
a
on
different
bananas.
recipe.
It's good for your
Some,
potassium.
brown
So you get
sugar
those
on some
lake wraps
plantains
during
and then-
pickleball.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like it.
So-
I ate both of that before it even got to the glass. So and like, check out this experience. Like we're having a moment, an experience right now. Like what if you can talk about your cocktails in an event setting, just like how James did.
Oh,
You know how many
man.
people you're gonna impress?
With that passion.
Right,
That-
right.
yeah.
And they're just gonna be like,
Right.
oh my gosh, this is like now we start to veer away from price. And now we're talking about value.
Absolutely.
Right? We're not talking about like how much did this bartender cost, this and that. Like, no. The value that this person put out, it's way more
Oh yeah.
than whatever price is out there. And that's our thing, right? It's more so figuring out how do you increase your value. So whatever price you throw out there, they're like, yep, I trust it.
Right.
Well,
Like,
you know,
right.
going along with that is again, I've been on this side of the house for 10 years, right? And within the last, maybe 4 years, 5 years, we entered COVID. COVID was a very different time, and everybody was becoming a mixologist at home, right?
Right, right.
And myself included.
Home
right?
bartender.
And, some of those suppliers, like we were talking about, what do they bring? Is some of those guys were bartenders.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
what always impressed me is they would be able to walk into an account with me and they'd be able to talk on a level that I wasn't able to, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about how it adds to the cocktail, what it does to the cocktail.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I really feel like I'm missing out on something. So
Yeah.
when COVID finally came around, I mean, all of us in the industry were now essential workers.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't at home, but I was working, right? I even
Right.
had a letter in case I got pulled over by the police that said I was.
Oh, really?
gonna
I'm,
say-
so I'm giggling because
here-
I haven't thought about
exactly.
it, but
Well,
you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, here are my son and my wife working at a hospital,
Yeah.
and they were essential workers,
Right.
and,
Right.
and
Here.
so was
There you
I.
go, that's
right
fair.
here.
Right?
Yeah.
And-
You are the
and
other side.
I
Yeah,
would,
yeah.
But we needed you.
Yes, you
Yes.
did.
So
Right,
bad.
right. And they needed you.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. Well, I mean,
Where's
that
that
was,
IV at?
Yeah. So
You know what? And I'm so sorry to
No,
interrupt you,
go
James,
ahead.
but this just reminds me. One of my very first, and this is, I think I've talked about on the show, one of my inspirations to starting a mobile bar was one of those like really rough days at the hospital. Everybody is just in a bad place, and one of our friends' husband pulls up with the bar on wheels
That's
for us.
right.
He
That's
had
right.
his SUV. He parks at our location of employment. The very first, very top tier of the parking lot, pops the trunk open and has coolers with all sorts of wine and liquor and ice and cups, and was like, I brought you guys a bar on wheels. So yeah, essential worker with the alcohol was right on
Yeah.
point.
that's why
For the
usually
workers.
that's why when
Yeah.
people say, "What do you do?" I say, "Well, I'm kind of like a doctor." But no, that came and so everybody was stuck at home, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that in addition to myself, there was a lot more people who were interested in making a drink. And I think too, coming out of COVID,
Mm.
a lot of people realized, well, you know what, I can do this at home, right?
Mhm.
Whether they do it good or not, that's another thing. But for me, it was more like, you know what, I should have done this sooner, because I understand how it's like baking, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a science to
There's
it,
a
right?
science
There
to
is
it.
science.
There's balance.
There's balance, or like
Right.
Don and I, we were in Paris, and we were sitting on the steps of the oh my goodness, now I'm going to totally forget the name of the museum, but it wasn't the Louvre, but it was the Orsay, and I had just bought this dessert, and there was an apricot on the top of it, and it, I bit the tip of it, and it was But when it mixed with the apricot, it was a whole
Yes.
Right.
It was a whole
different
experience.
experience.
Right,
And
right.
I remember it fondly. So when you look at alcohol and you look at recipes and it's like you put together things that you didn't think about putting together, and it's amazing. It's amazing. And,
No,
and so
Oh.
go ahead.
Question for you. I know we were talking about educating and tastings. For me, as a bartender, I have a hard time educating people on vodka. Vodka is not my thing.
Oh.
How do you educate people on vodka? What do you present? What are your talking points? What should I say?
It depends on the vodka. Really depends on the vodka. There's vodka, and then there's vodka. I mean,
Is that why I'm so lost?
you are?
That's
But
good.
there's. I don't want
a good
to.
one.
I don't want to
Yeah.
say anything and offend anyone, but there's some very interesting vodkas, and when you
Yeah.
understand how it's made, like
Grain.
the grain exactly. When you talk about even like you can make vodka almost out of anything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In fact, there's a vodka we have called Black Cow, and it's made from milk.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And it has yeah, exactly. Nima's making faces, but it's delicious.
Really?
Yeah, it's delicious. You can make vodka out of anything, and really, like are you talking about a vodka that's made from russet potatoes? Because russet potatoes are only grown in certain
Right.
places.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it's a
Right.
true, genuine russet potato vodka, well, then it's going to be in Idaho.
So what you're telling me, James, is I'm just going to continue to be lost.
You might,
Yeah.
unless you do the work,
Right.
right? I mean,
Research.
right? But I
Yeah.
mean, this is why this cocktail tastes different with this vodka, and it tastes
Right.
different with
Yeah.
because there was a
Right.
wheat vodka that I've had for a long time, and I talked to the supplier, and the supplier said this is a really good vodka for Bloody Marys, and I tasted. I'm like, this vodka tastes very because they had the wheat vodka, they had the potato vodka. And there's a big difference in the taste. And I think you know which one I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, because we had a grape vodka
Yeah.
when we were up in
Yes.
Napa.
Grape-
Very,
Yeah, we
very
were
Grape
different.
different.
vodkas
Yeah.
are very different
Very
than
different.
when you get to like a rye vodka.
A
Right.
rye
Right.
vodka, a bergamot vodka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah.
And look, there's just like similarities in the tequila world. There are vodkas out there that have additives in it.
Yeah.
And so just to try to make it more palatable. So there is like some cleanness and flavor that can come through with it. Like again, you go to like Russia and those,
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
man.
like going to Jalisco.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like that's what's
right.
out there, and you're gonna taste all sorts of different types of
Nuance.
things and nuances between it, which is interesting. So
Which kind of goes back with doing your homework because where did the spirit originate from?
right.
But there's also who did this really cool spin on it,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. So there's all of those things that are involved, but yeah.
No.
I mean,
Toughie,
I'll-
huh?
it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on who your customer is.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I want this price point as opposed to this price point. And I would imagine that if you said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's try this price point and let's try this price
See what
point.
you think.
Which one do
'Cause I
you
think
like?
people are
Right.
mostly Tito's or Kettle One.
Right.
Yeah. I think
Right.
that's
Grey
very
Goose.
popular.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are all
People
very
know,
popular.
yeah.
They've been around for a
Yeah.
while.
Mm-hmm.
People know the brand.
Right.
And so maybe people know the brand. Not that I'm knocking those by any means, but
Right.
there's other brands that you might like a lot more. I mean, when you think about something like Melee Vodka, Melee Vodka is, yes, it's Jason Momoa's vodka.
Right.
Which, I mean, there's the fanfare right there, but, that's coming out of an aquifer in Montana that, and again, I
Yes.
wasn't there, so I don't know if it's 3 million years old.
Wow.
But when you look at it, it's being double distilled, not triple distilled.
Right.
Why? Well, because the calcium content in that water that does something to that vodka, right? And it gives it a completely different polished taste, which
Right.
is
I think you said something so important, right? And that's with any spirit, your water source,
Yeah.
Yes.
We've
Yeah.
mentioned that before.
right?
Yeah.
You've mentioned it before, and that's where I think Melee does such a great job.
Melee, Sagamore, because the water
Sagamore,
source is right there.
Right.
Where like you just taste it. It's crisp. It's clean.
It's crisp and
Yeah.
clean is what
Yeah.
I have noticed. That,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, look, I want to talk about a product that's not sitting on here,
Okay.
and you know what I'm talking about. We
I
call
have
it
no idea.
whenever we call each other. I'm like, hey man, what's up with that F word? What's going on with that F word? Where is it
seriously, though,
at?
What's going on?
What's happening? Where are we at? So
want
no,
What-
but like
Ryan,
in
what
all
is
in
the
all
F
seriousness, in all seriousness is Fortaleza. It is a hot product, and I am just very
No comment.
yeah. I'm just very interested on how Breakthrough in yourself just handles that type of demand, right? Like, what challenges does that like kind of put on you to like manage that type of product? Because that's the top tequila right now, right?
It
That's-
is.
Yeah.
So before I have a little banana on my face.
Save it for later. Don't waste it. James.
She need a beer for.
You know what's interesting is about 9 years ago, I had a couple of accounts take it off the shelf.
What?
Wow.
How dare they?
It's before it blew up. Before people knew.
Yeah.
Well, it was one of those things where I remember having it as a goal, and it was really hard to sell. Everybody said that's too expensive. I don't want that. And now those same people are angry with me because I can't get it to them. It's I make the comparison. It's like having an elixir to cure cancer, and people treating me like I won't give it to them to cure their
I get
Right.
it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it really, seriously. I've
Wow.
had people yell at me
Wow.
saying, "Why won't you give it to me?" Well, it has nothing to do with what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 100% commission. If I don't sell, I don't eat.
Yeah.
And if I
Right.
had a ton of that, I would be able to eat very well.
Yeah, for a really long time. Yeah.
I would
I'd love
buy-
to sell this all day.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yes.
the only thing I want to sell.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it was one of those things. It was kind of hard to sell because at the time it was a little bit more expensive than the other tequilas. People, what really helped the industry are influencers
Right.
like
Mm.
The attitude
like
free
the
movement.
the free movement,
yeah.
which people finally caught on and understood
right.
what exactly that means, and which is why sometimes
Yeah.
some of our tastings, it's like, what does additive free mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's still though a very small percentage as to actually understand what that means.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The rest
Right.
are just followers.
Right.
They're just sheep, right? I keep hitting your mic. I'm so
I'm
sorry.
just moving over. Leave my mic alone.
But it's important. I mean, and
Yeah.
realistically, if you're drinking it, you really should understand why you're drinking that,
Right.
right? And I'm not going to get into that because they can do the homework,
Yeah.
right? But
Best homework I've ever done in
Yeah.
my entire life.
it really,
Google.
well, and some of the with some of the other additive free tequilas that we've done tastings
Right.
with,
Right.
well, I don't know, and so let me explain. And then you see the light pop on, like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Right.
world
which
of a
is
difference.
which
Mhm.
I find rewarding when
Yeah.
when somebody finally gets it. But with that, I would love to. I tell my customers, I would love to sell you a pallet of that.
I
Right.
really would.
Yeah. All day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's an amazing story. I won't go into the whole story that I'd heard and know, but it's the original Sousa family before this, before
Right.
Sousa is what it is today.
Right.
It's not the
Right.
same
No.
by any means. But legit heritage.
Mhm.
Mr. Camarena.
Exactly. So I
Yeah.
mean, they go way back. They do a fantastic job.
Mhm.
But they can only produce so much of
Yeah.
it.
Right.
But and part of that is them sticking to their process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Not taking
We've
any
seen it
shortcuts.
firsthand.
right,
Yeah.
right. And I think that can go into even bartending companies, right? Every bartending company has that moment. Why are you charging so much? I can just go to Joe Schmo and they're going to charge me a fraction of your costs. And you have to be firm and confident in what you do,
Mhm.
right? And as to why, like why you're paying, So going back to what you were saying, with my cocktails, I'm using fresh press passion fruit.
Mhm.
I'm using not just any lime juice. I'm using freshly squeezed lime juice,
Right.
right? And that goes back to Fortaleza, right? He can buy another distillery that can produce
Right.
5 times more
To match the demand.
to match the demand.
And now it's a brand thing as well, to
Right.
where everyone knows Fortaleza. Could he put in some different juice in there?
He can
to-
cash in
to
on
cash
just
in.
name alone.
Right.
Right.
They're at that level.
Right.
But
We're
it's not
just
about that.
But it's not about that.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's authenticity.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's how can I ensure that the quality
Right.
is there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And that's what you guys as bartending companies are doing. Yes, I cost a little bit more, but I am ensuring that your
Yeah.
guests walk away thinking, man, that was a great cocktail.
Yeah. Got to
'Cause
deliver.
that's a reflection on you.
Yeah.
Right.
As the host.
Well, I
Right.
mean, just put the money aside, right?
Right.
You know, it's so my son's in New York, and
Jacob.
yeah, and the Mexican food in New York is nothing like it is here.
Very different.
Come on.
Very
Right.
different.
And you know, it's like that. It's like, you know, he's gonna come home, he's gonna have a home cooked meal, and he's gonna enjoy,
Yeah.
right? And it's very different. And the same thing with them. It's like, you know, they're gonna give you that same home cooked meal in
Yeah.
every bottle, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what I went back to earlier when I talked about my mom saying, "Look, you only have your reputation," right? So, you know, I have a lot of respect
Yeah.
for them in sticking to what they're doing. I mean, for me, it creates a different situation.
Makes your life a little more
But you know
difficult.
what? You know, when I get that list, it's, you know, it's as good as you know, gone, and there's confidence that, you know, nobody's going to come back and say, you know, this tastes different. Right. You know, like when a brand gets sold,
Right.
A brand gets
Right.
sold and they paid all these
Yeah.
millions of dollars for this brand, and then all of a sudden they're like, you know, it doesn't taste the same.
Right.
Yeah, we've
And
seen
And
that
that
happens.
happens.
That happens.
That
More
happens
often
in
than you
this
think.
industry.
More often than
Yeah.
you think.
And
you know?
fortunately, the brands that we have, you know, are not in that
Right,
category.
right.
It's
They've stayed true
they've stayed
Yeah.
true.
to
Yeah.
their process
Yeah.
and their name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to pinpoint on what you said earlier, kind of a quick pivot. You mentioned that, you know, you work with suppliers that were actual bartenders before.
Some of them.
Some of them
some
that
of
are
Mhm.
bartenders before, and you would see experiences to where they could connect with the bartending community and that type of stuff. Do you think that the same situation, but for a distributor in yours, like if somebody had a bartending background, you know, and came to the distribution world, that could add value, right? Because at the end of the day, now you're directly selling to these bars and restaurants and stuff like that, right? Just like if you're selling to a liquor store, if you had your own liquor store in the past and now you're selling to liquor stores,
Right.
I just have to assume that there could be value added there.
Right.
What are your
Absolutely.
thoughts
No.
on that?
Absolutely. The only thing I would say, I just want to be careful because I don't want to be offensive by any means, but you know, bartending, and you tell me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have a whole different work regimen, a whole different discipline, right? Like, you know, I remember one time I was leaving the store, and you were having a meeting with your bartenders, and it was like 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
But they're okay with that because that's what they're used to, right?
Yeah.
They're used to being
Hours.
up late,
Yep.
they're working late,
Yeah.
but the value absolutely, because again, since COVID, people mixing at home now, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Bartender speaking to a good account, right? Maybe it's a mecca, right, if you will, a destination where people go, and they're asking for those suggestions. Hey, I want to make a good
Right.
whatever, right? And you know, that interaction with a previous bartender, he's going to say, yeah, I used to make a ton of these with this and with that, right? And he knows how, again, just like a baker, like I'm not a baker,
Yeah.
right? But I can't talk about what's going to make the best scone, right? My wife can do that. I can't do that. But so here you have somebody who's mixing drinks and who understands everything, right? Because recently I did the W set in spirits, and you know you're looking at that chart too, you know, sour, savory,
Yeah.
sweet,
Yeah,
and bitter,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
And
Before
they
you go-
understand that.
Explain what the W set is.
It's a certification, whether it's wine, sake, or even spirits. So you're learning about grains, you're learning about distillation, you're learning about different
Terroir.
stills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and even then, you know, something that I learned from like Hill Rock was, you know, again, another farm to bottle.
Yeah.
You know, he
love Hill
said
Rock.
something that I didn't know when he's talking about we want a lot of snow. Like, why would you want a lot of snow?
Mm-hmm.
He goes, because of the nitrates it throws into the ground.
That makes
Helps
sense.
with the grain, and then the grain. And so, you know, the grains are very much like grapes and vintages and years and, you know, heavy snowfall, heavy rainfall,
Science.
hot, right? It's all
Science.
science,
Yeah.
right?
Science.
Right.
But kind of went off track here. So
Oh no, it's all good.
So, but
the skills for bartenders to translate over to distributors,
it's
like
it's huge.
there's some similarities.
There
there
is.
right?
The only thing I would say though is that it's a different world as a sales rep
right than as a bartender.
than
Right.
as a bartender,
For
right?
sure.
So you bring a lot of tools, you bring a lot of knowledge to the cocktail, why it's important. It was made a certain way because that's the way it's going to make the drink taste, right?
Right.
But again, you know, like I'm probably past my bedtime right now, right? But it's not for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are used to staying up late,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm up early.
Yeah.
You guys are sleeping till, I don't know. I'll just
10?
say noon, right?
What?
Wow.
Right?
I wish.
I would.
Yeah.
Ah,
I wish.
Yeah.
But you know, again, I'm up at 4:45, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting tired at like
Right.
5 p.m.,
So,
6 p.m.
so I would say that if somebody from the bartending industry entered into this realm,
right.
they would need to understand it is a different realm.
Different
right?
different dynamic, yeah.
And yes, you do, but your pattern is different now.
Right.
And I've seen bartenders come in
Yeah.
and I've seen them leave.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because sales is just hard.
Right.
Sales is
Sales, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I want to, you know, you guys follow me here on this one. This is going to be interesting. So over here at Happiest Hours, you know, we're creating a way to where bartending companies are now connected to brands. They can choose the brands that they want for their cocktails. And I think that's kind of a first. Normally what happens in this industry, and I'm talking about the mobile bartending scene, the private event bartending scene. Normally what happens is, okay, I'm going to provide all these services and here's a shopping list for you to go buy the alcohol, right? Because mobile bartenders can't sell alcohol technically. Can they
Right.
influence? Can they persuade the brands to buy all that stuff? Sure. But we're providing a platform to where they can have more control with the products that can be in this setting. And it's really because of all the things that we've mentioned, right? Like being able to talk about the spirit, right? And the story behind it adds value to the bartender. So it would suck if the consumer just goes, or their client just goes and buys some cheap whatever, changes the whole core of the cocktail that they've created. And then now what story do they know about XYZ tequila or whatever, right? So we're giving them the opportunity to, you know, pair it with a spirit and then also track it as well. So my question for you as a distributor, do you think you would see value if I showed up and I said, hey, Vivian over here has moved X amount of bottles of Sagamore because she used that as her preferred whiskey on her whiskey cocktail menu. This is information that has not really been tracked from a mobile bartending standpoint before. Do you feel like a distributor would value something like that?
That's an awesome question.
Well, without having
it's okay,
much,
James. Just let us have it.
no, without. I mean, again, you're asking me something that I haven't really looked into per se, right?
Right.
But I'll say this is when that one day I had my boss and my boss's boss with me, right? And
Kudos to CJ.
and CJ was
Demonstrating
already
platform.
doing a demo
Right.
with the platform and what it meant. You know, that individual said, "How do we get on that?" So I think just that response answers the question, right?
Yeah.
I would say that answers the question.
Yeah.
You know,
no, I like it.
and recently, you know, there's recently been something that, you know, we've been able to speak with the supplier about and things worked out very well.
Right.
I think that it's interesting because when obviously when we first met, you were still in your beginning stages.
Yeah.
I still want to know what happened to the video of Alana's father dancing in the beginning of that thing.
What?
Right? It was him, right?
For the grand opening?
No, it was when you were advertising Have Mobile Bart. So you guys, it's so old y'all forgot.
Oh,
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was your dad, right?
That used to be on. It was on the
your
platform.
It was on your
the
website.
platform. It was the at the house when we did the.
He was having such a good
yeah,
time. I felt like I was missing out. Honestly, I watched it, I'm like, man, I'm missing out. Like, but anyway, I'm sorry.
Bring it back.
Oh, is it?
James.
Okay, good. Okay,
That's
I
good.
didn't know if I touched the nerve.
No,
or
no.
not.
All right.
That is honestly.
great.
But
the
you know what?
beauty of James.
You I saw that and so this was all the beginning because that's obviously not there anymore, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in the beginning, I mean, this is something that is still developing for
Right.
you.
Right.
And I'll
Very
tell you, again, store's one thing and talking with CJ and saying, okay, this sounds really good. And okay, I hope they stay true to this. I hope this works.
Right.
Because I'm really excited about it.
Right.
And it's continued to grow and change, right?
Right.
And I think that you are a trailblazer for answering your own question.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly feel that. I think that you're setting the example. Because I've seen some of these bartenders come in, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because they've done it for a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
But then they see what you're doing and what you've done and what you're setting. And I could they haven't said it, but I could see on their faces is that I never thought about this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And
Brian's really good at asking us questions that literally it's like, oh, I don't know. I've never been
and they've
asked
been doing
anything
it's
like
just
that.
been a
Yeah.
reaction.
Yeah.
Right.
They've just been reacting.
Mhm.
They're
Right.
plankton,
Right.
right? They're just
Right.
going with the
Mhm.
with the flow,
Where the tide takes
right?
you.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden you guys have gotten to this point and you're not done. That's the great thing
Yeah.
about it.
Right.
Nowhere near.
No, and
Yeah.
it's just going, and it's an eye opener for some,
Yeah.
and then there's others that are just going to be doing exactly what they've been doing, and that's okay,
Yep. Yep.
right?
It's safe.
Yeah.
we
Right.
it's
Mhm.
Yeah.
Safe.
exactly,
Yeah.
or it's it's within the comfort zone, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, but you need to get more than your fair share.
right.
And you
Yeah.
haven't learned that yet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I guess hopefully I'm answering your question.
No,
Is that you
you
are
are.
bringing it right,
Right.
there? That value is coming.
Yeah,
Mm.
you put it in. I can't say any better words than what you just said because, at the end of the day, timing is everything, right? Like we live in this world of like social media and influence. That's what we're just trying to do is track influence.
Yes,
Like it's been happening without Happiest Hours.
right.
Vivian, prior to Happiest Hours, has been saying, hey, you should get this kind of tequila. You should get this kind of vodka.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
this is what I prefer. If I'm going to be doing this in front of all of your family and
Right.
friends,
Right.
Yeah.
like, please get this or
Yeah.
get that.
It's
Like-
more like, please don't get that.
Yeah, right.
Unless
Whatever
it's
you
vodka,
do.
then you weren't sure.
Right.
Then I'd be like,
any
ah,
vodka.
yeah.
Whatever you
Whatever
do,
you want,
just
yeah.
don't buy
Yeah.
this product,
Yeah.
right? So, however you slice it, there's some form of influence. And
Yeah.
we are just trying to track that influence so that, because it's real decision. There's a percentage. Like, we even see just this month just finished April,
Mm-hmm.
75% of the
Yeah.
events that went through our platform purchased the alcohol,
Wow.
the
That's
preferred
huge.
brands for these bartending
Right.
companies
Mhm.
through the platform. They said, okay, I'd rather do that. Because it's like a package deal. It's peanut butter and jelly, right? It's all
Right.
like, you got to have the alcohol if
Yeah.
you're going to make a cocktail.
Yeah.
So it's all like, you might as well make it right. And so, I just feel like there's a new world to where let's make sure whoever is responsible for the buying decision gets credit for it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I
Right.
think it really comes down to, because all distributors and then the suppliers see is that somebody just bought a bunch of booze from Costco.
Yeah.
They don't know, right, whose house it went to, what cocktails was made from, who influenced that purchase at Costco.
Right.
They don't know any of that, right? So it's time to figure that out.
Right.
And if you want to
What's
be
the
involved
age
with the
range?
mix,
What's the gender?
right?
What's
yeah,
the
100%.
Because now I can market as a supplier. Now I can market to that because now I see, man, the person who throws a birthday party, and then brings me back for the anniversary, and then brings me back for the retirement party. But they're sticking with the same cocktails, the same brands. Now I have even more information.
Yeah.
And not to get to like I don't want my no, it's just more of like it's like marketing is just getting the right message to the right person at the right time.
I think growing from
and
that.
that comes from information.
You're actually helping me out. I
Thank
don't want
you.
to go digging for that information.
Thank you.
Tell me
Yeah.
what I want.
Thank you.
You know what
Thank
I mean?
you.
Tell me what I want.
I
And
love it when my phone tells me
Yeah.
like, "Here's this ad,"
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm like, "I did need that."
you're
Yeah.
right. You're right.
Like,
You
yeah,
know
you
what?
got
I
me.
was gonna look for it anyways.
There
You
you
just
go.
made it easy for me.
I don't have to look for it.
And you know what's interesting about this and opportunities? And again, there's this trailblazing like what if scenarios, but like I could see a world where it's like these distributors can own some of that data to help your suppliers make decisions and where they should put in their marketing efforts.
Well, they do a lot of marketing. I mean,
Right.
they've got budgets that we'll never have, right?
Yeah.
To do that marketing.
Yeah.
All different channels.
But then again, what's the marketing, right?
Right.
And
Is it providing value?
well, and is it in line with what you're looking at, right?
Right.
But I mean, I think that with you guys and with reps, good reps, that they're gonna come to you with ideas. They're gonna come to you with products that you've not heard of or thought of or knew about, and that's right. And so that's very helpful for you guys because, yeah, I mean, you don't know everything that's out there. I don't even know there's everything
Right.
out there. And
No.
I got a big
Right.
book, right?
Right. 100%.
I think the wisest person is always the person who knows they don't know it all.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the wisest
You
person.
don't know what you don't know,
Yep.
right?
That's it.
That's it.
No, I love it. I love it. Well, no, this is James, you've been fantastic. You've been in the game and you've schooled us so much.
Oh man.
We cannot thank you enough for taking CJ's call when we didn't officially have our
This is my guy.
liquor license.
This is my
and
guy.
for you to take that call and to help, to genuinely help, it says a lot about yourself, right? You're and the pride that you have about yourself and how you care for people, right? And it's like whatever jersey you're wearing, you're still going to be you.
Right.
And
That's right.
I think that's a key part, and sometimes that gets missing in the lives that we live. But like James is fantastic, and if there is, you're again going back to it, you're really good at product and the stories, and if there's some advice out there for people that they need when it comes to memorizing the stories and adding value, to what you're doing. Like what could you give out there, especially to our mobile bartending community? Because again, they're in so many different settings and so many different products. And now it's all like, oh, my husband's a whiskey lover and he loves like Buffalo Trace and this and Mark and all these things. It's like they literally just finished this event the night before that was like all this gin and all this stuff. Now they're jumping into this whiskey situation. Like, and they want to increase their value. What advice? And we think that doing that through product is that's one great way of doing that, of increasing your value. What advice can you kind of give to these folks about something that you've been so like exceptional in when it comes to product?
Can you repeat the question?
I know.
Just kidding.
I went around. I went around about
Can
one.
you, and can you do it without moving your hand?
Yeah. Now you know that's impossible.
No, you know
Right.
what? I'll tell you. Way back in the beginning of my sales career, way back, it was interesting. This one company I worked for, they had you go through this program, and it was called integrity selling, and it was all about integrity, right? And you're always going to purchase from someone you trust, And for you to trust somebody, it's because they haven't led you astray, right?
Right.
Mhm.
They've always taken you to where they feel is good for you, or again, consultative sales,
Yes.
right? And I think that anytime you can take that mentality with whether you're selling whiskey or I don't know, insurance or
Yeah.
napkins or whatever it
Yeah.
is, right?
Napkins.
Right? It's
I'm laughing
not
because
all
I-
napkins are the same, Vivian. I mean, come on.
No, I'm laughing because I literally had a conversation
About
today with another
napkins?
bartender about napkins.
Right?
Because weddings, some of the couples are just so dead set on having like their napkins embroidered with their wedding date or their puppy on it and their names, and they're so adamant about spending those $500 and
On
nobody
Then
cares.
it just breaks apart.
Yeah,
when you're
no,
white.
literally nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
about your puppy napkins.
You know what is so funny? Okay, I'm sorry.
Data is important.
This is
though.
another stupid
let's
story.
talk about it.
Another
Just
stupid
saying.
story about napkins because it's about napkins.
Yeah.
Setting up
Open
an
this
event
door.
at
Right?
at someone's
Pandora's
private
box.
residence. Their stupid little terrier dog comes out, bites me in the literally bites me on the thigh through jeans
Oh
and
my
everything,
goodness.
and I'm like, it's okay, blah 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 blah. They're super apologetic, and I'm like, just let it go, guys. It's more obnoxious than anything. It hurt like hell.
Oh my
I
god.
bet.
And then as I'm leaving, like, oh, Vivian, I'm so, whatever, so sorry, but here's a box of napkins. Can you make sure the bartender uses the napkins? Tell me why it was that stupid dog that bit me on the napkins.
Adding salt to injury.
Literally, I opened it. I was like, sir, are you serious?
Hey, I'm taking this to a whole nother level because you said insurance and you said dog biting. So like at one point in time, I learned this. The number one claim in home insurance,
It's dog
like
bites.
payouts, is dog bites.
Oh, not
but-
napkins?
Not
No,
napkins.
I thought it was a napkin.
It's dog bites
yeah, I
because like
believe
the
it.
dog
Wow.
is considered property
Yeah,
of
on
the
your
home. There's an
property.
endorsement
On
to
your
the
property.
policy
Question.
that says if you bite, the policy needs to pay. It's crazy.
whatever.
Which insurance policy do you need your dog on? The pet insurance, or do you need it on your
But the
homeowner's
pet insurance is for like
No, it's
first
if your
party,
dog
like if
gets
something's
sick.
wrong with your
Yeah,
dog.
yeah,
Oh, so
Yeah.
you need
Right,
it
so
on
for
homeowner's
third
I knew I
party-
should have never
for
said anything
third
because now
party-
we're on a huge tangent.
Yeah. But this is
Anyways,
good. Next
closing
time, file
remarks,
that claim.
Ryan?
No, but
Closing
again,
remarks.
bring in the value. I'll tell you, like being a consultant. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to steer you wrong. One of your customers, the last tasting I did, we were talking about an old fashioned, and I said Demerara
Yep.
syrup, which you can't buy Demerara syrup.
Yeah. You have to make it.
You
Make
have
it.
to make it.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because she said, "What? What's this Demerara syrup?" And so you know what? I don't know if they bought something or not, but I said, DM me and I'll send you the recipe. I'll send you how to do that.
Where did she DM you at?
On juiceman _ 2 N's
Juice man.
007.
Hey,
Got
Juice
that
Man
right.
007.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, anybody who wants to, follow me,
Pick your
I'll get
brain.
I'll go
Yeah.
from 5 to 6 people, and that'll be really good.
Guys,
But,
look at that hair. Come on.
Come on.
Follow that hair.
Hey.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, I didn't have to do that, but I
Right,
wanted to do
Right,
it.
right,
Right.
right,
And
right.
and they were your customer, and I mean, this is all about relationships. This is
Yeah.
all about consultative selling and with integrity.
With
So
integrity.
I think in anything, you definitely have to have that. Surprisingly, there's people who've been selling whatever for years, and they don't really have much integrity. It's,
Right.
it's all
Yeah,
selfish.
yeah, we all come across that.
Yeah, no, this is great, man. You talked about closing that gap of trust, right? That's what it really comes down to.
A genuine trust.
Genuine
Yeah.
trust. It can't be
Yeah.
you're trying to manufacture it.
No.
It's just people know that, hey, this is a good dude, whatever it is. This is genuine, and you want to close that gap of trust. And then one thing also mentioned previously is prep, right? I think there's a lot more valuation in preparation than people think.
Yeah.
Like before you go to the event, figure out who am I doing this event for? What is their background? There's all sorts of information out there. There's LinkedIn. Put the person's name in LinkedIn and see what company they work for.
Right.
Hey, you're a lawyer that works at this law firm that focuses on cybersecurity. Wow, that's interesting. If you show up as the bartender knowing this information,
Yeah.
you're separating yourself from any other vendor that's there in that moment. and the last bartender they hired. That's the one thing. And then prep something about the knowledge about the spirits. If you
Right.
know the
Right.
missus told you that my husband loves whiskey and he has this, and this product.
Do your
Even if
research,
you don't
do
even
your
like
homework.
whiskey,
Yeah.
even if
Right.
just like how Vivian's like vodka, I don't just do your homework on it.
Right.
There's Google. Google's a
Yeah.
great thing. Google this stuff. Just do a quick little 5-10 minute research and add a little bit more value, right?
Yeah.
So, and you've been a proponent of that. Every time you come into our store, you're extremely prepared and you just know your products. And there's so many of them, which is crazy. That's why it's
Right.
like it's hard to fathom, but dude, James, thanks again, man. We just appreciate you coming up. I know it's past your bedtime, man. So the fact that you're here with us right now means a lot.
I do have a
So,
question. What
Yep.
What is one thing you remember me saying? I mean, you could throw something out there.
Oh.
I think I would hope it's what I'm thinking, but
Demerara.
well, the,
Napkins.
one thing have I said
Puppy
that's
napkins.
stuck in your mind?
Yeah.
Oh man, consultative selling, because that is when I deal with James. That's what I feel, but I don't feel like I'm going to a financial consultant. I don't feel
Sure about that?
right.
Remember
That-
that
no,
once again?
no. I feel like I'm speaking to a father figure, someone who genuinely cares about my success. Right? It's not about I have reps that I have great relationships with. And there are times where, it can feel a little salesy, right? Or I can tell, hey, you have a goal you need to hit. Right? I can feel it.
Right.
With James, I always will genuinely feel he is looking out for my best interest. And so
Awesome.
James is always playing the long game. And for me, it's just a reminder, do the right thing. Do the right thing. Do what's best for the people that I want to be my customers. And as long as I do what's best for them, maybe that person might not find the value in that, but someone's going to find the value in that. And
Right.
that's how I found value in James, because I value who he is as a person, because he genuinely cares about me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, that was really nice. I thought he was going to say, it'd be,
Demerara.
it'd be financially irresponsible.
Oh yeah, well, financially, he's given us that talk before too, as every son has heard from their father. Yeah, and also Bubba's.
I was gonna say pancakes.
Yeah,
That was my next
pancakes
thing.
is
Pancakes.
probably
Pancakes.
bacon
Yeah.
and pancakes.
Viv, what about yourself?
Integrity.
Yeah.
Because that is something that's very important to me.
There you go. Love it.
Thank you.
Well, guys, this has been fantastic. For the mobile bartending community, just know that the distribution side of things matters in what we're doing. There's a lot of similarities. There's people that you can learn from, especially when it comes to product knowledge and all that good stuff. But we're here. Tune into the next one. Come through and make sure you file behind the mobile bar.
Yeah.
Right? Cool.
Follow, subscribe,
Yep.
like.
Make it happen.